Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday, November 13th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And we had a big rally on Friday, ran up to a new high. We're getting into the overbought territory up here. We broke the trend line, we broke the resistance line. We did pull back here today and test it and traded back higher. It was kind of a range day, but we closed near the highs, not as high as Friday. So this looks more like a consolidation day and a pullback to test that breakout. Will we go higher from here? I'm just not sure. Um, but we do have a. It looks like we have a close outside. It's real close. It's not convincing. So my guess is we may push higher yet. We may go test this breakout that was never tested. Notice when we came through here, we tried to go back a couple of times, never could get there. So we may run all the way back up and test this breakout area. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Um, but anyway, we'll see what happens. We're getting, like I said, we're getting into overbought territory. So this has been a huge rally. Um, just as long as the prices are going up, stay with it. I mean, this thing could turn at any second and drop like a rocket, or it could just keep going higher. You can't argue with the market. As bad as as bad as all the news has been lately, the market just keeps rallying. So don't argue with it. Whatever it does, follow it and go with it. Just be prepared because it could turn down at any time. Um, I really thought we'd turn down at this trend line, but now we got a break. Um, we'll see what happens. So let's flip over and look at when we go to the 2000 tick. You'll see it's just kind of a slow. It was real slow, low volume, kind of low volatility kind of day, really. But let's flip over there. And here's a look at it. You can see we were in this range till about 10:30, and we broke out. Of course, it failed pretty quickly, but we pushed higher, and we just actually went into a flatter range here, this pink range. And there's just not a lot of trades today, not much happening today. Um, just kind of a slow, low volume kind of day without much direction or just a lot of choppiness. We had this rally from about 9 o'clock to about 10:30, and then that was pretty much it. We just kind of worked sideways from there. We did close near the upper in the upper portion and outside of the early range. So wasn't surprised that we went to here. Let me explain this to you. This is where we closed on Friday, and this is where we opened at 8:30 today. When it turns white is at 8:30. Well, this stuff is all overnight trading, so it shows up on the 24-hour chart. But if you went to a regular trading session where it shows where the market closes on Friday and then opens at 8:30, it would have showed it opening from here. There'd be a gap on that chart. So even though you don't really see a gap on this chart, it's there, and prices will usually try to fill that gap. And notice we rallied, we went right through it, but it was quickly we hovered around that gap the rest of that close from Friday the rest of the day. So this rally might have only been to close that gap. We could turn back down, or we could turn around and go higher. It's hard to say at this point. Today was mostly sideways. So let's zoom in here, go through the trades. But hopefully that makes sense to you on the gap, because what would happen on a regular chart is you would see the close right. Actually, it was right here on Friday, and then at 8:30 you would have just seen it open right there. And so from here to there, there's no trading except on the 24-hour chart. And generally they'll try to come back and restart it where it left off Friday. And I call that a gap. Technically on the 24-hour chart, there's not a gap, but if you go to a regular trading session, I think you'll see the gap on a regular trading session chart. We use the extended hours because we use that price action as part of our trading, and we start trading at 7 Central, so it's early before 8:30 even opens. The volume's pretty good by 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, so you got to convert that to your time. Don't think if you're if you're on Eastern Time, doesn't mean you can start trading 7 Eastern Time, because that's only 6 over here, and maybe it's starting to pick up at 6 o'clock, but I would wait till about 7 o'clock Central Time and convert that to your local time before you start trading live. So anyway, not a lot of trades today, kind of a quiet, um, kind of a quiet mixed trading day. But let's zoom in here, go through the trades. But 7 o'clock came right in here, and we're in this range, right in the middle of the range, and we run up here and we kind of break out. I made this one green, but this is close to be. You could probably, I like this trade. You could call it red because it is a triple test up here. Even though we broke out of this support and made a new high, normally I would make that green because you're better off to wait on a lower high. But because that was the overnight highs on a failed breakout, I would expect prices to at least go back to the EMA and maybe go all the way back to the other side, which they do. And so this would have been a pretty good trade. It's real. You could argue for this to be red. I marked it green because a lot of people probably may not look back over here and understand what's going on. And you just see the breakout from this resistance area. It's a new high, and you got to be careful with those because a lot of times they'll make one more jog up and stop you out and then turn down or whatever. Generally, you want to wait on a lower high, but because this is really a triple test, I think you could go ahead and take that trade. And if you recognize that, you could even argue for that to be red. So hopefully that's clear. And you can see that was a really nice move. All these longs got trapped, probably a bunch on the breakout there, and man, they ran their stops, and this thing ran straight down, and then it kind of chopped lower, went sideways. You get a breakout here. Not a very good signal bar. You do get a lower high here. I made this one green because technically there's not enough room to scalp out before you get to that low right there. But the lows are really here. I usually like to judge it by the closes because you never know if it'll go back to that low. But there's like 5 ticks here, so you only need an extra tick. So you could let this break lower and drop a limit order in and see if it would fill you and get in that way. If you could, you could mark this red. But if you go short 1 tick below that, I think you're going to come up 1 tick short possibly. And you actually would have at first. You wouldn't have got stopped out, but you would have come up 1 tick short temporarily before it went lower. So I like this trade. But depending on how you looked at it, it could be green or red. If you waited till it closed, that's a little more risky because there's only 5 ticks to here. It doesn't mean you wouldn't get 6 because the low's way down here. But I like to use those closes just as like a safety valve type. I'm going to count on it to make it to here. And if it needs to make it any further, I don't know that it's going to make it. And you see where it bounced first. It bounced right at the line, then broke higher and failed instantly and turned back down. I almost want to mark that because that's a perfect reversal, but you can't really look for a reversal in sideways stuff like this. Yeah, it probably traps people, but it obviously wasn't as good a trap as this was up here. But and it doesn't really act like a trap because it just like I said, even on a trap, most breakouts fail temporarily, just like this one did, and then the bottom falls out and it kind of drops on down. And then there's nothing but sideways down here. You can't really trade this. Here's another breakout. That one's tempting, but it looks too congested. It's not that far from the EMA, although really the EMA is not that big a deal in sideways. We've bounced down here so many times we could go higher. This one's tempting on a triple test, but that's just too congested. And you see it failed at first, but it ends up running up, comes back down. There's no lower high here, and it fails on the breakout. This one you can mark green. I meant to mark this green. It's a little congested, but it breaks lower and turns up, and so you could use that as an engulfing bar. I like entering on the engulfing bar, giving you plenty of room back. Most all breakouts fail, even if only temporary, and that's exactly, it runs all the way back up to the midline, comes back, and then you get a little double tap there. So that's really a triple test. It's a second entry, even though you're not really looking for second entries. And it's a fairly low risk bar, 5 ticks. I like going long there. It's a high or low on a second entry. And that turns out to be a pretty quick move. Might have got a runner on that one. Comes back and gives you a high or low here on another second entry. The first break. I like going long there again. It comes back and makes another high or low. But it's just kind of an inside bar, and we've already had a break. We didn't make a new high. It looks like the range is still going, so it's just not a, neither one of these are really a good place to enter here. So I think you got to sit and wait. You want to get in closer to the lows down here. Now we do get a 1, 2, 3. Actually, you get a triple test here, but that little bar is just too neutral looking. It's only 4 ticks, but it's just very neutral and it bounced off the trend line. So it could push on up here and make that new high. But when it pulls back and tries to go higher again and fails, if it breaks lower than that, go with it because now you got a clear triple test there and a decent signal bar. And it's good for a scalp. It does confirm this trend line. No long there. This is just a breakout pullback, but it's too congested. Not really a good setup. Just sideways here. We're just chopping higher. But of course, this trend line's in play, but I just don't see anything I like until you. This looks like 2 legs back, but you also get a second entry right here on the new high. So this looks like a double. You could count that either way as a second entry. The signal bar is not perfect. I think that closes close, maybe another tick, and it probably would qualify. So I kind of like that trade. I think you'd be okay to take that trade. It's a little more aggressive just because of the signal bar. We do come back and make a higher low here, and it's a pretty good signal bar, but we've already had the break and new high. Sure, we might make another leg, or we might even make another trend up, but you got to be careful there. I'd wait on the second entry, which comes right here. I marked this blue. We're a little close to the highs, but you can see, I mean, that's also like a 1, 2, 3 triple test of that EMA. So you got that triple test. You got a second entry. You're making higher highs and higher lows still. We're not back to the highs of the range. I like that trade. And so it's close. You could almost argue for it to be green, but I think you're fine taking that trade. And then it runs up here and you get your first close outside and you get a 1, 2, 3 triple test. Again, the signal bar is not perfect. However, this broke lower first and turned up and went out the other side. You could trade that on the engulfing bar if you wanted, and that would be red. But if you waited for this to close, I think you got to mark this green because it's not a great signal bar. However, on the triple test with the engulfing bar, I like taking it on the engulfing bar. In fact, I like letting it break higher and dropping a limit order maybe a tick or two back just to give yourself a little more room. And this thing's probably going to go higher. It tried to go lower 3 times and failed. So we're likely going higher. And of course, we run all the way up to the other side of the trend channel and then turn down. It's unfortunate you don't get anything really to trade there, but finally you get a first entry, second entry. It's also a failed breakout of the little channel there. Very nice signal bar. I like going short. It's the first break of that channel. Even though we didn't really confirm it, I still think it's valid right there. I like going short there. There's a lower high here, but it's an inside bar. You can't take that. And we actually, looks like we tried to make a somewhat of a triple test there, but there's just not much room here. So that looks too congested. It would have worked. I mean, that's one you might argue to be green. Runs down, bounces off here. This is a second, technically by the counts it's not, but it's clearly 2 legs down, and it does bounce right off the key entry point. We've already had a break and 2 legs down as well. So that's another one you could argue to be green. I didn't mark it because I wanted to wait on a higher low, and you don't get it. Notice we go lower again. This is all too congested. We're right off the trend line, so you don't want to be going short right here. It does end up breaking lower. That one's tempting, but again, I think you need to wait on the higher low. And a few minutes later, you get a double bottom right here with a big reversal bar. Now you've tried to go lower 3 times. I like going long there. It's good for a scalp, a little more than a scalp, but then it comes back and runs the stops again before it goes higher. This is really congested. If this would have been an engulfing bar, I don't even know if I'd have taken it because there's so much stem here. That's still a tempting entry. But I just think you got to wait. It just looks too congested right there. I mean, the reason is because the buying is not, or the selling is not completely dried up, and the buying's starting to come in. And instead of going lower, it just keeps trying to, it just keeps chopping sideways. So I forgot we were right here. So I would not take that trade. I just wait. It turns out to be a great trade, of course, and I don't think I'd go short here. We got a close outside and a new high all really in a couple of bars there. Very bearish bar way away from the EMA, and it is a double top, but I just think you need at least a second entry or lower high or something, and you never get it. We just start chopping sideways. Now, there's another triple test here, but there's just not much room to scalp out right there. And I mean, it's 1 point, so you're going to come up short. So I think you got to skip that one. So, I mean, this would just kind of be a judgment call. I wouldn't take it. Maybe it should be green. I'd probably skip it and wait on something better. I mean, that's really congested. And if you go long there and it turns down, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And we just came off the highs, so we're more likely to go to the lows. But it goes higher. So it's just, and it was a triple test, and that's probably why it went higher. So, but it could have broken out a tick or two and turned down and went straight down here. So it's just kind of a judgment call. I don't think it's a high probability, but I'll mark it green. And, if you took it, it turns out to be worth the gamble, but next time it might bite you. So just be careful with that one. We break out. We turn down right here. This is a double top. I didn't draw it though, but this channel is still in play. That's the first break. So we could push up one more time. So even though there's a double or triple top there, with that 2-bar matching low, I would wait. And you see what happens. It breaks down, runs up, makes a new high, and then it turns down, and there's just no setup there. So you got to be really careful with that one. I guarantee there's probably somebody watching that got burned there. And you could argue it was a triple test. 1, 2, 3. But this is a new trend because this one already had, we never really, it looks like this is really the first close outside of this trend. So this new high makes a new high for both this green trend and this one. Now we came down, we got a close outside, and we tried twice to go lower, but because it was a triple test, it didn't make it and it went higher. And you would expect it to go lower. So that's why you don't, the market doesn't always do what it's supposed to and what you expect. So that's why you got to be disciplined and patient sometimes because you can get burned. And even though it works running up this time, next time it may not. And you just don't get a chance to go short there. The first break's way down here. It's just a first entry with not much room. And then you make a new low and then you're running up again. There is a higher low here, kind of a failure type, but it looks a little congested and you're not really looking for a failure in the middle. You'd want to see it on a breakout or way down here. So I don't think you want to take that, even though it would have worked too. And that takes you into 230. So really a quiet day. And you can see here that we got a break of the big blue channel, but we never made a new high. A lot of resistance up here at 44.34 today anyway. So that's how I saw it. Just kind of we had a little bit of a rally here with some trades, and then a little bit looked like we were going to sell off, but it ends up just going sideways. There just wasn't much out here this afternoon. So it wasn't much early. The trades kind of picked up around 9 and kind of was done by lunchtime. So 3 hours in there, you had a nice little 3-hour window where if you were patient, you could have found you a couple of nice trades. But other than that, there wasn't much happening. So anyway, hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.